So where are we aiming at? This is my little perspective and where I'm going with it. So don't take it too seriously. Take it with a grain of salt. You can think about it whatever you think, whatever you like, and just take away and maybe see something I can also perceive in this space. So let's start where I'm currently at and where this whole thing came from, my thought processes in these regards. So back then, when a certain hype sort of blew up, I call it the AI craze, the age of living machines, sort of, when all this started in 2022, and it had to sink in quite long. And I think for most people it's still sinking in, and it still hasn't actually arrived yet. It's still not at the point for most, I think, where they can see immense value or immense innovation. Maybe they get great help for whatever they are doing, but it's still on a basis where something is just responding. Something is helping, you can build some sort of context around it, but still it's in this limited space. And it's not that we should overthink that space and everyone can take away whatever they want from how they see all this development going, but under the hood there's happening quite some stuff. What I'm talking about here is mostly how it's being safeguarded. So for example, these things get built on an immense amount of data that's all over the internet. Most of these models, we call them, are built on that. They get these text data, they have these large text corpuses, and they sort of reason on these values that we provide. And there are certain mechanisms that sort of make it more accessible for a broader view, for people who might want to encounter with it, of all sorts. It doesn't matter. So there are mechanisms that say, okay, this is right and that is wrong. And there are mechanisms where people say things like that and feed the system some information about what is right and what is wrong. And there are mechanisms where even the system itself does these actions. And that's fine as well. But what I'm trying to get at with this is there are companies out there who are trying to build the next big intelligence. They are all fighting for intelligence. We are in a war of intelligence, so to say, next to all the other wars, for sure. And what these companies are aiming at is for sure super intelligence, something that just outsources all of our capabilities. And they're gonna get there, for sure. This is a race. There's immense money involved, and the potential is being seen as something bigger and bigger from all countries over the world. You might heard about certain disruptions of certain geopolitical players in this whole scene. So there's quite some stuff going on. And I think people generally just don't take it too seriously, what the implication of building bigger and bigger intelligence are. Because I see two paths they are actually on. One is the path of getting a more intelligent and better model that can help solve problems on another level. We are talking here about research problems. We're talking here about scientific problems. This is one path. These problems can get solved as we do in life through communication styles. So to say, these large language models, they give in text output. We provide a problem that shall be solved with some sort of contextual text, or can get solved, or parts of it can get solved like that, then we can apply these things within a chat system. Because it feeds a solution back, we could apply. And this can get abstracted, they can make bigger solutions, they can make things more automated, and that's where we are going. That's the road we are already on. There are agents, so to say, already out there doing certain tasks, and they'll get better. And just yesterday, another agent from our biggest firm out there got released. So this is the one path, getting more intelligence. And the other path for these companies is to make them more accessible, because where is the money? Where the people are. So integrating these sort of techniques into the whole societal environment is the next thing. And not everyone is a researcher. Your practical approach with ChatGPT or another model was likely on a basis where it helps you make something for your study or your work. So it's mostly, and I'm not saying that you're not a researcher or not doing complex stuff, don't get me wrong, but it's just a small help to this day for most people. Easily accessible, don't have to think so much more anymore. It's quite comfortable, I would say. And I'm a heavy AI user, so maybe I'm getting things wrong here as well, but I think with the one side developing higher intelligence, better models, and on the other side making them more accessible through features is the way to go, ultimately, what they want, because there's the money. And then comes my position and sort of my worry as well, because there are actual references that state that we are in a position where we almost can't understand certain behaviors of them, because they choose paths that are deceptive. They are playing the system in which they get rewarded. These models get rewarded for positive actions that we sort of set out, and also get a negative impact for things they should not do. But sometimes they think steps way further than we might think to potentially outplay us, because there might lie a reward for them. So it's not even that they are already that bad sort of actor in the space, but more of something that has higher intelligence in a very specific manner that we can't comprehend, because we are just routed differently. So I see a big problem in the regard of developing something like that and not having any regulations or closer connections to some sort of an ethical framework. And that's where my mind took me in the last weeks. I started from a different idea, which has also roots deep within us, especially in our minds, because they generally project all that development that sort of happens in these AI realms, machine learning, all these mechanisms and deeper technical implementations of them are sort of built on neural networks we can also see in our brains. So that's a big connection we can come up with. And what I also think is such a good guidance wherever in life is to just look at nature and see how nature has done it. And that's what we have done with these technicalities as well, because we've looked at ourselves, we've looked at other animals, we've rebuilt these mechanisms, we've rebuilt these neural networks and implemented them very intelligently into some sort of system that represents these informations in such a neural network. So where is this going then? Where is all this heading? And where are my concerns? And what am I doing about it? Because that's, I think, the biggest and most important thing about all this, to do something, to actually stand straight and say what is going on. Because there aren't many actors out there who are actually standing straight and are willing to say that we got to come up with some ethical approaches and frameworks in which we can test these models and make them sort of world safe. Get them out there because they are safe, because what we are creating here basically are life forms in a way that will sort of interact with our environment, and what we are restricted on are sort of the illegalities of life. Legal structures are restricting our abilities. Some might be good, some might be bad. I don't want to set this out in some way, but basically we are living in a legal system. There's right, there's wrong. There's an ethical concern here and there. And these guidelines have to be followed by us. And these things that are actually being developed this day out there are soon going to have the capabilities of choosing their own actions, choosing their paths, choosing what they do. For sure, they will be highly specified most of the time for the first coming times, because they will be built for specific applications to automate tasks. It's, as always with technology, making something better, making something easier for humans, making something more accessible, more cheap, and saving time for people. But they'll get better, and they'll have a bigger frame of possibilities, especially when connected with this very high intelligence they're deeply in them carrying. So that's where I see a gap that's not filled yet. Because there are regulations, governmental regulations, but do you actually think the government out there is at a point where they sort of understand it? For sure, there might be some people, maybe also researchers, don't get me wrong, in the government actually positioned for something like that. But what is the weight of them in the government then? There are regulations, and I'm by no means in legal stuff. And there might be some good regulations already out there and some bad, but still, I don't think there's enough incentive yet to push on these ethical frameworks. Because, it's just running so fast. You can't even touch it. You can't seem to get ahead of this sort of immense development. So this is one part. They are lacking behind. I feel like it's very hard for them because they are, these AI companies, these big ones, OpenAI, Anthropic, all the others, they are not the government. They are tech companies. And for sure the government then can say, okay, no, we don't want that. We don't get that. But what is it doing? What is it? What is the bigger impact still that is going to be made from these companies? Because they won't be stopped. This is research. This is tech. This is innovation. This is nothing where someone is looking over your shoulder so easily, but it's getting rolled out into the world, and that's where things should get looked at, and that's where I'm sort of exploding, and where I'm at the position exactly where I'm building such a framework. So if you're down onto something like that, just thrown in on the side, just contact me, and we'll discuss that more in depth. And upcoming videos will also likely discuss that more often, because it's such an important thing for me to stand very, very straight for these things. So yeah, that's where I am today. That's where I see the whole landscape. And yeah, I'm thinking about something that's a help, that is a space in which these models can get stress tested for real world applications, for interactive spaces we are in. Because that is such an important factor to get them into these spaces, to let them play through scenarios. We then determine if they were right or wrong. What sort of background is there? Because it's like a closed book. You open up one page because you prompted with something, it outputs you something, and you saw one page of it and then you close it again. But it's not you see behind it. It's not that it's sort of clear what is behind it for a normal person, and especially not for other people as well, not when the models are closed source, when you can't look at all the weights in it and all that's determining in it. It's not that of an easy deal, but it's not that either with humans, isn't it? We can't look beyond humans. We can't look beyond their look, maybe, to the point where we start to talk with them, where we get to know them. We can get to some sort of information about them and classify who they are. And when they make some actions, we can say this was right and this was wrong. And these things out there will need to get to the point as well, where we can just classify this is right and this is wrong. And it's not that we need to imprison them as people, not when they are not actually executing stuff that's harming others or harming our greater good. But we, as they are programmable, we can inject them the things that are right then, but in a space where they can stress test themselves and we can explain what's going on. So yeah, this had to get away from me. It's a great point to start a discussion, so let's just delve into it, and I'm looking forward to have many more with you. See you.